25,000 years. That is how long they watched over the galaxy, vigilant, patient, protective, a silent presence guarding countless worlds. For millennia, they existed almost as myths, unseen yet undeniable, until treachery and fear drove them to the brink, hunted, betrayed, and seemingly erased from existence. Yet, the story of the Jedi did not and could not end with extinction. Their legacy, their influence, and the very energy they had devoted themselves to remained woven into the universe itself. The Jedi were far more than warriors, wielding luminous swords and extraordinary abilities. They were custodians of a profound energy known as the Force, a living web that connects every being, every star, every pulse of life in the galaxy. While the names Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Rey are celebrated across generations, the true history of the Jedi is far deeper than these legends, steeped in secrets, prophecies, and sacrifices that challenge our very understanding of destiny and power. Imagine a time before empires rose and fell, before republics spanned light years, before hyperlanes stitched distant stars together. On a remote, oceanic world known as Tython, a small group of beings made a discovery that would forever change the course of history. Through meditation in simple stone huts, they unearthed a connection to the Force itself, sensing the pulse of the universe, understanding that life was not merely matter, but an interconnected tapestry. These early practitioners laid the foundation for the Jedi Order, constructing temples that reached for the heavens, forging weapons of concentrated energy, and honing their minds and bodies to feats that would seem impossible to ordinary beings. But the true power of the Jedi was never in their lightsabers or their ability to manipulate the elements of the Force. Their strength lay in unwavering commitment to peace, justice, and balance. For thousands of years, they stood as the fragile line between order and chaos, philosophers seeking understanding of existence itself, diplomats quelling conflict before it ignited, healers tending the sick and wounded, and teachers passing wisdom from one generation to the next. They embodied ideals that inspired awe and sometimes fear, the living embodiment of what it meant to rise above desire and ambition for the greater good. Yet where there is great power, darkness always waits. The Force that empowered the Jedi could also corrupt them. Figures like Revan, Malak, and Darth Vader became stark reminders that even the brightest light casts shadows. Civil wars raged, betrayals tore through the galaxy, temples were reduced to ashes, and numbers dwindled until only a lone master remained on a distant world. Still, the Jedi endured. Their teachings endured because the Force exists in every act of compassion, in every choice to resist tyranny, in every decision to put the welfare of others above personal gain. The story of the Jedi is not merely the tale of a warrior order. It is a chronicle of humanity, or sentience itself, grappling with power, responsibility, and the eternal tension between light and dark. From their earliest beginnings on Tython to the tragedies that befell their order, from their greatest triumphs to their darkest hours, this story unfolds through ancient texts, forgotten holocrons, and oral traditions preserved over millennia. It is a narrative that goes beyond legend, revealing the Jedi as more than myth, more than lightsabers and battles. It is the story of what it means to strive for balance in a universe of chaos. Long before republics existed, before lightsabers illuminated the void of space, and before the destructive might of a Death Star was ever imagined, a group of scholars on Tython discovered the Force. Picture a circle of philosophers around a flickering fire, realizing with wonder that their minds could move objects, bend energy, and sense life itself. It was meditation transformed into revelation, discovery made tangible. Yet with the Force came duality, the light and the dark, a cosmic yin and yang with stakes higher than anything they could have imagined. Those drawn to the darker side would spark conflicts that would reverberate across generations. The true formation of the Jedi Order occurred on Tython, an oceanic world dotted with rocky islands, where the first temple arose stone by stone. These early Force users, not yet called Jedi, were the pioneers of a philosophy that would shape civilizations. Diverse in species, culture, and background, they shared a singular vision. The Force was not for domination, but for service. They chose responsibility over personal gain, wisdom over ego, and duty over glory. Imagine wielding unimaginable power and choosing to devote it to something larger than yourself. This was the essence of the Jedi path. Establishing the order was no simple task. Training methods had to be developed, moral frameworks instituted, and guidelines created to prevent descent into the dark side. Instruction manuals for an energy as vast and unpredictable as the Force had to be written, generations of trial and error codified into wisdom. Among their earliest achievements was the creation of the Jedi texts, written on paper, carefully detailing the principles, ethics, and techniques that would guide the order for millennia. These were not ordinary books, but foundational compasses for understanding life, power, and the responsibility that comes with both. As the Order expanded, it established a network of temples, training centers, and meditation retreats across the stars. Each location became a beacon, drawing Force-sensitive beings from myriad worlds and species, ensuring that knowledge, justice, and balance could flourish throughout the galaxy. Training evolved from rudimentary experiments into sophisticated disciplines. Basic meditation, telekinesis, and insight into the Force were honed into systematic practices. The principles of the Jedi Code were born, emphasizing serenity over anger, knowledge over ignorance, compassion over aggression, and selflessness over personal ambition. Over centuries, the Order grew more structured. Ranks were established, roles defined, and training programs formalized. This was not bureaucracy for its own sake, but a careful system designed to safeguard a power that could either uplift or destroy. The Jedi, as they came to be known, became the embodiment of responsibility, the guardians not just of life, but of balance itself. They were a testament to the enduring truth that the greatest power lies not in what one can take, but in what one chooses to protect. And so the Jedi Code emerges not merely as a set of rules, but as a living, breathing philosophy that has guided countless generations of Force-sensitive beings throughout the galaxy. It is a system so profoundly intricate and deeply considered that it transcends simple morality or practical instruction, shaping the very way Jedi think, act, and perceive the universe around them. At its core lie 5 central tenets, each of which transforms a skilled practitioner of the Force into a steadfast guardian of peace and justice, capable of navigating both the subtle currents of diplomacy and the violent torrents of galactic conflict. The first tenet, there is no emotion, there is peace, serves as the foundation of all Jedi conduct. Misunderstood by some as an instruction to suppress feelings entirely, it in fact calls for a deeper mastery, the ability to acknowledge emotion without allowing it to dictate action. Jedi are taught to recognize anger, sorrow, and fear, yet to cultivate a stillness within, a calm mind unburdened by emotional turbulence. This delicate balance allows them to act with clarity even in the most harrowing circumstances, whether negotiating fragile treaties between warring systems or standing resolute on the battlefield as chaos erupts around them. The calm, unwavering center of the Jedi mind is not a denial of humanity, but a disciplined channeling of it. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge, proclaims the second principle, reflecting the Order's relentless pursuit of understanding. Jedi dedicate themselves to the accumulation of wisdom across countless domains, not only the study of the Force, but also history, science, culture, and diplomacy. Their libraries and archives, vast beyond imagination, are repositories of knowledge spanning the entire galaxy. The path of learning is endless, and even the most venerated masters continue their studies throughout their lives, recognizing that insight is not a destination but an ever-unfolding journey. This commitment transforms the Jedi into thinkers and scholars as well as warriors, capable of addressing challenges with both intelligence and compassion. The third tenet, there is no passion, there is serenity, often sparks debate within the Order. It is not a call to extinguish caring or compassion, but a directive to act with deliberate thought, to respond rather than react. Jedi learn to temper instinct with measured consideration, a skill essential in moments where quick judgment carries the weight of life and death. During the Clone Wars, for example, Jedi commanders were required to make rapid strategic decisions under extreme pressure, often facing moral dilemmas with profound consequences. By embracing serenity, they could navigate these crises without the clouding influence of personal desire or unchecked emotion. There is no chaos, there is harmony, encapsulates the Jedi's understanding of the Force itself. Beneath the apparent disorder of the galaxy lies a web of interconnected energies and patterns. Jedi are trained to perceive this underlying structure, to discern the hidden currents shaping events across time and space. By recognizing the harmonies within chaos, they can act with foresight and balance, responding to disturbances in a way that preserves equilibrium. This perspective allows Jedi to maintain clarity in moments of crisis, seeing beyond the immediate turmoil to the broader narrative unfolding across the stars. Finally, "There is no death, there is the Force," reveals the profound spiritual dimension of the Jedi philosophy. Mortality is not feared, for death is merely a transformation, a return to the Force from which all life springs. Advanced Jedi achieve a remarkable state, retaining consciousness after physical death and continuing to influence the living world as Force spirits. This principle emphasizes that existence is continuous and that life, death, and the Force are intricately intertwined, offering a perspective both humbling and empowering. The influence of the code permeates every aspect of a Jedi's life. Attachments are approached with caution, for fear of loss can cloud judgment. Possessions are minimal, with a focus on essentials, the lightsaber, robes, and other tools needed to serve the greater good. This simplicity is not deprivation, but a conscious choice, freeing the Jedi to dedicate themselves fully to the welfare of others and to the Force itself. Even failure is reframed. It is not a mark of shame, but a vital teacher offering lessons for growth and deeper understanding. Each setback, each misstep, becomes a stepping stone on the endless journey toward mastery, resilience, and wisdom. Above all, the code serves as a moral compass, a practical guide for wielding immense power responsibly. It ensures that Jedi remain protectors, never conquerors, sustaining their role as the galaxy's peacekeepers for millennia. Through adherence to these principles, they earn the trust of civilizations spanning countless worlds, their presence a beacon of stability and justice amid the stars. At the heart of this vast order stands the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, a monumental embodiment of their philosophy and history. Rising far above the city's towering skyscrapers, its 5 spires pierce the skyline, a constant reminder of vigilance and guardianship. More than a building, the temple represents the culmination of thousands of years of tradition, architecture, and spiritual insight. Its origins lie in a humble meditation retreat atop a sacred mountain. Yet over the centuries, it has grown into a sprawling complex, layered with new wings, chambers, and sanctuaries that mirror the evolution of the Jedi Order itself. Each stone, each hall tells a story of foresight, dedication, and the unbroken commitment to wisdom, service, and the Force. From the quiet contemplation of its meditation halls to the strategic councils of its high chambers, the temple embodies the living philosophy of the Jedi Code. It stands as a testament not only to the power of the Force, but to the disciplined minds, compassionate hearts, and enduring courage of those who dedicate their lives to its service. Through the teachings, the code, and the temple itself, the legacy of the Jedi continues to shape the galaxy, a narrative of balance, harmony, and unwavering devotion to peace. And at the very pinnacle of the temple, the central spire soared into the sky, a gleaming monument that seemed to touch the heavens themselves. This was more than architecture. It was the home of the legendary Jedi High Council chamber. Encircled in perfect symmetry, this circular room offered panoramic views that stretched endlessly over the sprawling city below, a visual reminder of the galaxy that the Jedi had sworn to protect. Here, the wisest members of the Order gathered, their discussions and deliberations shaping the course of galactic history. Every element of the chamber was carefully conceived. Its circular design symbolized equality, ensuring that no voice dominated over another, while the vast windows surrounding the space served as a constant reminder of their solemn duty: to watch, to guide, and to safeguard. Beneath the spires, the temple's heart was a labyrinth of purpose and life. Its main structure housed a vast network of training halls, study rooms, and living quarters, each corridor designed to elevate both body and spirit. High ceilings drew the eye upward, a subtle nudge toward contemplation and reflection, while natural light filtered through a seamless marriage of ancient stone and modern crystal transparency, casting shifting patterns along the floors. These hallways were more than passageways, they were the witnesses to the ceaseless rhythm of the temple. Padawans hurried to their lessons, Masters engaged in profound debates about the philosophy of the Force, and younglings tentatively explored the first steps of their lifelong journey as Jedi. At the very core of this magnificent structure lay the fabled Room of 1,000 Fountains, perhaps the most breathtaking space within the temple. Stretching across multiple levels, this vast greenhouse was a living tapestry of life from hundreds of worlds. Waterfalls tumbled gracefully through the lush vegetation, their gentle murmur creating an oasis of calm amidst the constant hum of temple life. Jedi of all ranks found solace here. It was a place for meditation, reflection, and renewal. But it was more than a garden. Every leaf, every droplet, every creature served as a living testament to the connection between the Force and all life in the galaxy. The archives of the temple, a marvel of knowledge and preservation, held secrets and wisdom accumulated over millennia. Imagine the largest library ever conceived, and then multiply it many times over, for the Jedi archives contained records, data, and philosophical works spanning the entirety of galactic history. Holographic data streams, tinted a serene shade of blue, illuminated the colossal halls as droids flitted silently among the stacks, assisting Jedi researchers. The knowledge stored here was priceless, safeguarded by some of the most sophisticated security measures ever devised. Historical chronicles, scientific treatises, and cultural texts filled every shelf, ensuring that no lesson from the past would ever be lost. Training facilities within the temple reflected the breadth of Jedi development. Meditation chambers offered spaces of serene introspection, while combat arenas simulated intense challenges, enabling young Jedi to hone their skills. Beginners practiced lifting objects and controlling the Force in basic training rooms before moving on to advanced simulation chambers, capable of recreating any environment or scenario. Special sections were devoted to the sacred craft of lightsaber construction, a rite of passage essential to every Jedi's journey. The temple was not only a place of learning and duty, it was a home. Living quarters, though modest, provided everything a Jedi required for rest, contemplation, and study. From the dormitories of younglings to the private chambers of masters, each space was a reflection of the Jedi philosophy: simplicity, utility, and purpose. Communal areas encouraged interaction across generations, ensuring the steady transmission of wisdom and experience. Security within the temple was a delicate balance of accessibility and protection. While certain areas welcomed visitors and citizens seeking guidance, others remained strictly off-limits, guarded with both ancient systems and cutting-edge protections. The Temple Guard, an elite cadre of Sentinel Jedi, maintained vigilance around the clock, ensuring the safety of the Order and its sacred secrets. The lower levels of the temple held echoes of the Order's ancient past. Hidden chambers, some dating back to the earliest days of the temple, were shrouded in mystery. Vaults stored powerful and dangerous artifacts, their contents too sensitive for general access. Many of these areas were so old that their original purpose had been forgotten, adding an aura of mystique and reverence to the sprawling subterranean network. Healing and restoration were central to the Jedi way, and the temple's medical facilities reflected this principle. Jedi healers worked alongside advanced droids, tending to injuries from training, exploration, or the dangers of galactic conflict. These spaces were also classrooms where aspiring healers could develop and refine their abilities, blending traditional techniques with the mystical guidance of the Force. Every patient, every lesson, every act of care reinforced the temple's enduring mission to nurture body, mind, and spirit in harmony with the galaxy. Within these walls, the temple was more than stone and spire. It was a living, breathing testament to the Jedi Order itself, a place where knowledge, discipline, and compassion intertwined, shaping generations of guardians destined to uphold peace across countless worlds. It was a city within a city, a sanctuary, a crucible, and above all, a symbol of hope. And yet, few institutions in the history of the galaxy could rival the intensity, mystery, and sheer transformative power of Jedi training. While the galaxy's most prestigious universities boasted about graduation rates and academic accolades, the Jedi Temple quietly and methodically reshaped children into living legends. This was not a conventional education. It was a complete metamorphosis, one that pushed mind, body, and spirit to the very limits of human and alien potential. Not every initiate would survive the journey, and those who did emerged fundamentally altered, capable of feats that seemed to bend reality itself. The search for future Jedi often began in the most unexpected of places. Some sensitive children were born into noble families or advanced worlds, carefully observed by tutors and advisors. Others were discovered in remote villages, humble farming communities, or chaotic spaceports teeming with life and chance encounters. The Force, as it seemed, cared little for social status, wealth, or birthplace. Jedi scouts roamed star systems, following whispers of children with extraordinary abilities, youngsters who could anticipate events before they occurred, or manipulate objects with no physical contact. Upon their arrival at the temple, these children were thrust into a world beyond imagination. Picture a 3-year-old standing in the vast, echoing corridors of the temple for the first time, their wide eyes drinking in the sight of older Padawans levitating objects, or masters engaged in meditative movements that seemed to ripple through the air itself. For many, these first moments marked the beginning of a journey that would last decades, a path filled with discipline, wonder, and hardship. The early years, often referred to as the youngling phase, were far from the gentle nursery school environment one might imagine. By the age of 5, initiates were already learning to harness the Force through exercises disguised as simple games. They would sit in circles, passing glowing orbs of light between them, each catch and release strengthening their mental connection to the Force. A missed catch could send the orb bouncing across the hall, prompting bursts of laughter alongside crucial lessons about focus, patience, and adaptability. Combat training began surprisingly early, though initially it was devoid of lightsabers. Younglings learned hand-to-hand techniques, basic martial arts, and exercises that emphasized balance, coordination, and discipline. Only after mastering these fundamentals would they advance to training with practice sabers, blades that delivered a sharp sting rather than a fatal wound. Many younglings learned humility and restraint through these weapons, as overconfidence often brought swift and painful reminders to maintain focus. Academics were no less rigorous. Younglings studied ancient Jedi philosophy, intergalactic history, advanced xenobiology, and the complexities of diplomacy. They learned multiple languages, navigated intricate political structures, and gained an understanding of cultural subtleties across countless worlds. The Jedi archives became both their playground and proving ground, a vast repository where they absorbed knowledge from millennia of galactic civilization. Small clans were formed, creating bonds that often surpassed family ties. Each clan specialized in different aspects of training. One might focus on telekinesis, another on force-enhanced acrobatics, yet all shared the common goal of surviving the grueling initiate trials. These trials, usually encountered between the ages of 8 and 9, were the first major hurdle, testing everything the younglings had learned. Success meant progression to advanced training, while failure often resulted in reassignment to the Jedi Service Corps. Though some perceived the Service Corps as a lesser path, its members played critical roles, from agricultural innovation to medical research and exploration. The Padawan phase introduced an entirely new level of intensity. Selected by a knight or master, apprentices embarked on real-world missions where lives hung in the balance. One week, a Padawan might be immersed in ancient texts, deciphering the wisdom of past masters in the temple library. The next, they could find themselves negotiating peace between warring factions on a distant planet, where a single misstep could have catastrophic consequences. This apprenticeship often lasted a decade or more, gradually transforming raw potential into discipline, skill, and wisdom. A crucial milestone in this journey was the construction of a lightsaber. This was far more than the creation of a weapon. It was a spiritual rite of passage. Padawans sought out a kyber crystal, often wandering the galaxy guided by the Force to find the one crystal that resonated with them. Once discovered, the crystal attuned itself to the Jedi, producing the iconic blade colors that symbolize both individuality and unity within the Order. Physical and mental training intensified to extraordinary levels. Padawans studied all 7 forms of lightsaber combat, each form increasing in complexity. The first form, Shi-Cho, emphasized basic strikes and parries, while the 7th, Juyo, required movements that seemed to defy gravity and human anatomy. Force training expanded as well, incorporating healing techniques, battle meditation, and other abilities that could decisively alter the course of conflicts. Survival training tested them in the harshest environments imaginable. Frozen wastelands, where they learned to manipulate their body temperature through the Force, and swamp-covered worlds where every misstep could prove fatal. These trials honed resilience, taught reliance on intuition, and reinforced the profound interconnection between Jedi and the Force. Ranks within the Jedi Order were not mere titles. They were earned through decades of discipline, mastery, and unwavering commitment to the Force. From youngling to Padawan and eventually to Knight and Master, each stage demanded a complete integration of mind, body, and spirit. Those who succeeded became living embodiments of the Order's ideals, capable of feats that inspired awe and fear alike across the galaxy. The journey of a Jedi was not merely a career. It was the forging of a legend, a testament to the heights a being could achieve when every limit was tested and transcended. And so imagine the Jedi Order not simply as an organization, but as the galaxy's most extraordinary and intricate career ladder, a structure that demanded far more than skill with a lightsaber. Advancement within its ranks was not measured solely by talent or ambition, but by the mastery of mind, body, and the Force itself. This was not a conventional workplace where the wrong email or missed deadline might cost you a promotion. Here, one misstep could alter the course of your destiny entirely, determining whether you would ascend as a legendary figure of wisdom and courage or succumb to the seductive pull of the dark side. Every journey within the Order began in the tender years of childhood. Younglings, often no older than 5 or 6, took their first tentative steps into a world that was vast, strange, and filled with unimaginable possibilities. For these children, discovering the ability to manipulate objects with the mind was not an exceptional event. It was simply a part of everyday life. Some displayed remarkable aptitude almost immediately, levitating rocks and mastering Force exercises with natural ease. Others took longer to bloom, requiring patience and encouragement, teaching early lessons in perseverance and humility. In the Jedi Order, patience was not merely a virtue, it was a necessity for survival. Upon completing their foundational training, a youngling would advance to the rank of Padawan, entering what could be described as the galaxy's most intense internship. A Padawan was paired with an experienced Jedi Knight or Master, forming a bond that would shape their understanding of the Force, responsibility, and morality for the rest of their lives. Their braided hair, carefully maintained and distinctive, became an emblem across star systems, signaling the arrival of someone who would one day bear great responsibility. During these years, Padawans learned a remarkable breadth of skills, from diplomatic protocol to the delicate art of combat restraint. They also learned, sometimes painfully, the risks of accidental Force mischief, including the occasional unintended plunge of a mentor into swampy terrain. The rank of Jedi Knight represented a turning point in a Padawan's evolution. Here, the apprentice was no longer merely a student. They had become a full-fledged protector of peace, a frontline guardian of the galaxy. Knights often operated with extraordinary autonomy, their judgment trusted to impact entire star systems. Some became masters of combat, their names whispered in awe as legendary warriors. Others distinguished themselves through diplomacy, resolving conflicts before they erupted into full-scale wars. And there were those drawn to investigation, blending detective work with the Force to uncover truth and justice where ordinary methods failed. Rising further, the rank of Master was reserved for those who had proven not only their power but their wisdom. These were the living legends of the Order, individuals whose understanding of the Force transcended technique, whose choices shaped history. Some Masters devoted themselves to training the next generation of Jedi, passing on knowledge with patience and insight. Others pursued scholarly missions, expanding the Order's collective understanding of the Force, or undertook delicate tasks that required the rare combination of skill, experience, and judgment only they could provide. At the pinnacle sat the Jedi High Council, 12 of the wisest and most capable Masters entrusted with decisions whose consequences would ripple across time. To earn a seat on the council was to hold immense responsibility, a position akin to holding the keys to the galaxy itself. The council chambers perched atop the highest spire of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant offered a sweeping view of the city planet below, a constant reminder of the weight of duty, the balance between the Republic and the living force. The Order also recognized specialized paths for unique talents. The Temple Guards, enigmatic warriors in white and gold masks, devoted themselves to the protection of sacred spaces, their vigilance unwavering. Jedi Seekers traveled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, seeking Force-sensitive children whose potential could change the future of countless civilizations. The rank of Battlemaster was reserved for elite warriors who trained others in the art of lightsaber combat, ensuring that the next generation could face threats that ordinary tactics could not. What made the Jedi ranking system remarkable was its adaptability. A knight might devote decades of service without ever pursuing the title of master, finding fulfillment in their chosen role. Some of the galaxy's greatest heroes never sat on the council, yet their contributions shaped the Order in profound ways. This was not a rigid hierarchy, but a dynamic framework that allowed each Jedi to serve according to their strengths, temperament, and the needs of the galaxy. In the Outer Rim, where law was often tenuous and survival a daily struggle, certain knights distinguished themselves as peacekeepers. These Jedi blended traditional training with the practical demands of frontier life, resolving disputes and preventing conflicts that might have seemed insurmountable to ordinary authorities. Working alone or in small teams, they developed reputations for solving problems others deemed impossible, embodying the living principle that the Jedi Order was more than a hierarchy. It was a commitment to the Force, to justice, and to the enduring pursuit of peace. Another fascinating aspect of the Jedi ranking system was the way it embraced specialization, recognizing that mastery in particular disciplines often held significance beyond formal hierarchy. Some Jedi devoted themselves to the art of healing, learning to channel the Force in ways that allowed them to mend injuries and cure diseases that even the most advanced medical droids struggled to understand. Others focused on the living Force, developing an almost symbiotic connection with the natural world, enabling them to sense disturbances spanning entire star systems. These areas of expertise were not officially codified ranks, yet within the Order they carried a unique authority and respect, shaping the influence of those who had honed such skills. The relationship between ranks often proved more nuanced than a simple list of titles could convey. While a master officially outranked a knight on paper, real-world experience frequently dictated leadership. A knight who had spent years studying a particular alien species or working within a specific sector of the galaxy might take command during missions even in the presence of a master. This flexible approach ensured the Order maximized each Jedi's strengths, prioritizing capability and knowledge over rigid structure, and fostering an environment where practical skill could outweigh formal designation when the situation demanded. Communication within the Order followed its own intricate protocols, blending secrecy with efficiency. Jedi developed a sophisticated system of hand signals, Force signatures, and coded messages that allowed them to coordinate across vast distances and in dangerous circumstances. These methods became particularly vital during the Clone Wars, when conventional communication channels could not always be trusted. The Order also maintained secret ranks known only to the High Council. These clandestine operatives worked undercover, sometimes for years, gathering intelligence on threats to the Republic, infiltrating criminal organizations, or uncovering corruption within the Republic itself. The existence of these hidden ranks remained a closely guarded secret, with many Jedi going through their entire careers unaware of their brothers and sisters working silently in the shadows. The architecture of the Jedi Temple itself reflected this layered hierarchy. Access to chambers and training halls was often dictated by rank and specialization. Certain areas, such as private study rooms for masters, were reserved for the contemplation and practice of ancient Force techniques, while the training dojos followed a similarly tiered system. Advanced combat forms and Force abilities were taught only to those deemed ready, ensuring that power was coupled with responsibility. Perhaps one of the most remarkable aspects of the Jedi Order was its approach to failure and redemption. Rank was not necessarily permanent, and setbacks did not preclude future advancement. The Jedi understood that true wisdom often emerged from overcoming failure, and many respected masters had endured profound defeats before achieving their eventual status. Their journeys served as enduring lessons, inspiring new generations of Jedi to persevere through hardship and grow stronger from adversity. The ranking system itself proved adaptable in times of crisis. During the Clone Wars, for example, some Padawans were promoted to knight status more rapidly than tradition would normally permit. These battlefield promotions, while controversial, demonstrated the Order's capacity to evolve and recognize talent under extraordinary circumstances, ensuring that ability and readiness could override rigid timelines. The Jedi trials represented the pinnacle of the Order's dedication to personal growth and rigorous evaluation. Few moments in a Jedi's life carried more weight than these ancient tests, which had separated ordinary students from true knights for generations. Far beyond ceremonial display, the trials were transformative experiences, designed to probe the depths of a Padawan's courage, skill, and insight, often pushing them to their absolute limits and beyond. The trials consisted of 5 core challenges, each examining a different facet of development: the trial of skill, the trial of courage, the trial of the flesh, the trial of spirit, and the trial of insight. Though the scenarios varied across time and place, these fundamental principles remained consistent, emphasizing not only technical mastery, but also personal growth, moral discernment, and the cultivation of inner strength. The trial of skill tested mastery over lightsaber combat and force abilities, demanding rapid decision-making, tactical thinking, and complete control over weapon and self. Padawans frequently faced scenarios that combined multiple threats, such as defending against numerous remote droids while simultaneously solving environmental puzzles, all under intense mental and physical pressure. As Master Obi-Wan Kenobi once observed, a Jedi achieves harmony with the Force only when skill and awareness align perfectly, allowing them to act with precision and calm in the most chaotic circumstances. The trial of courage forced Padawans to confront their deepest fears, distinguishing true bravery from reckless recklessness. This challenge required clarity of purpose and moral fortitude in the face of overwhelming odds. During the Clone Wars, many Padawans encountered this trial amidst the genuine chaos of battle. For example, young Caleb Dume, later known as Kanan Jarrus, faced his trial of courage during Order 66 under circumstances no ceremonial test could have replicated, confronting danger, loss, and the collapse of everything he had known. The trial of the flesh presented the greatest physical and endurance challenges, testing a Padawan's ability to withstand pain and push beyond natural limitations. Though this might sound harsh by modern standards, such experiences were essential preparation for the brutal realities of life in the galaxy, where Jedi could encounter treacherous terrain, hostile adversaries, and unforeseen calamities. Each trial was carefully calibrated to develop resilience, endurance, and mastery over one's own body, reinforcing the unity of mind, body, and force. From enduring the harshest and most unforgiving environments to recovering from injuries that would leave ordinary beings incapacitated, the journey of a Jedi Padawan was never about mere survival. It was about transcending the experience entirely, learning to disentangle consciousness from the vulnerabilities of the body, and sustaining unbroken focus even when every fiber of one's being screamed in protest. This was the crucible of the spirit, often referred to as facing the mirror, and countless initiates regarded it as the most grueling of all trials. Within these sacred exercises, Padawans sank into deep meditative states, confronting the shadows within themselves, dark impulses, paralyzing fears, and possible futures that whispered of failure or despair. Through the Force, they encountered vivid visions of their greatest temptations and deepest anxieties. Some confronted twisted reflections of their own selves, others relived the raw trauma of memories long buried. The trial was never about defeating these visions. It was about maintaining equilibrium, cultivating awareness, and emerging with a profound understanding of oneself. As Master Yoda wisely instructed, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The trial of insight, another cornerstone of a Padawan's growth, demanded a subtler mastery. It tested the ability to perceive truth beyond the superficial, to see through veils of illusion that masked reality. Often these trials appeared as intricate puzzles, moral dilemmas, or diplomatic conflicts. At first glance, a scenario might seem straightforward, yet the untrained eye would fail to anticipate the cascading consequences of a hasty decision. The true challenge lay in discerning the wider impact of one's choices, in navigating the delicate balance between action and foresight. Frequently, these trials were not isolated events, but intertwined into single, multifaceted experiences, challenging every aspect of a Padawan's development simultaneously. During the Clone Wars, many young Jedi faced these trials amid the chaos of actual combat, their masters observing as they applied theoretical training to the raw and unpredictable reality of war. The significance of these trials extended far beyond mere demonstration of skill. They were profound rites of passage, symbolizing the transition from student to knight. Success required more than technical ability. It demanded spiritual and emotional maturity, a readiness to uphold the ideals of the Jedi Order. With each trial passed, a Padawan shed layers of their former self, slowly emerging as a more complete being, prepared to carry the weight of the Order's legacy. The culmination of this transformation was the formal knighthood ceremony, one of the most sacred rituals within the Jedi tradition. In the presence of the Council, the Padawan would kneel as their master severed the braid that marked their apprentice status with a lightsaber. This act symbolized not just personal achievement, but the continuation of an ancient lineage, a living thread connecting generations of Jedi spanning thousands of years. Yet it is crucial to recognize that trials were not a single pass-or-fail hurdle. They were an ongoing process of growth. Padawans underwent extensive preparation, facing preliminary challenges to build the wisdom, strength, and resilience required. Some repeated trials multiple times before their masters deemed them ready to ascend. Upon achieving knighthood, a Jedi might follow one of several specialized paths, each reflecting a distinct calling while maintaining fidelity to the Order's shared principles. These paths were not rigid categories, but streams of expertise, allowing the Jedi Order to fulfill its many obligations across the galaxy. The three primary paths, Guardians, Consulars, and Sentinels, each represented a unique approach to service, each as vital as the next, like tributaries feeding the same river yet nourishing different realms. The Jedi Guardians, frequently regarded as the Order's warriors, were far more than mere combatants. Distinguished by their blue lightsabers, Guardians devoted themselves to the physical aspects of the Force and to mastering combat techniques, yet their true purpose transcended martial skill. Guardians embodied the protective aspect of the Jedi philosophy, standing as shields between the innocent and those who would bring them harm. They could be found on battlefronts, safeguarding diplomatic envoys, or defending sacred sites. Obi-Wan Kenobi epitomized this path, blending combat prowess with keen judgment. His mantra, "I will do what I must," reflecting the Guardian ethos, readiness without unnecessary aggression. During the Clone Wars, many Guardians rose to the rank of general, their tactical acumen and martial abilities safeguarding countless Republic worlds. Jedi Consulars, identifiable by their green lightsabers, embraced a contemplative approach, dedicating themselves to mental disciplines, diplomacy, and scholarly pursuit. They served as the Order's philosophers, negotiators, and healers, striving to resolve conflicts with wisdom rather than force. Their meditative practices cultivated deep connections to the Force, enabling them to perceive the hidden currents beneath surface turmoil. Within this path, several specialized roles emerged. Jedi healers, revered for their ability to mend both body and mind, could accelerate natural recovery, purge toxins, and even address psychological trauma, often working within the Temple's medical wing or journeying across the galaxy to aid those in need. Jedi Seers, endowed with exceptional precognitive talent, extended this perception further, interpreting complex visions and guiding the long-term decisions of the Jedi Council, serving as both guardians of foresight and interpreters of the galaxy's shifting destiny. Each path, trial, and specialization underscored a singular truth of the Jedi Order. Growth was perpetual. Challenges were multidimensional, and mastery encompassed far more than physical skill. The journey of a Jedi was a living narrative of endurance, insight, and transformation, a constant striving toward equilibrium between self, the Force, and the galaxy itself. However, as Master Yoda often cautioned, the future is always in motion, a flowing river of possibilities that can neither be fully predicted nor easily controlled. Seers, those gifted with visions of what may come, learned early in their training that such glimpses required careful handling. Wisdom and restraint were not optional, they were necessities, for the weight of foreknowledge could crush even the strongest minds. Within this framework of prudence, the Jedi Sentinels emerged as a unique bridge between two distinct paths of the Order: the Guardian, devoted to combat and protection, and the Consular, devoted to diplomacy and deep understanding of the Force. Sentinels frequently wielded yellow lightsabers, a subtle yet profound symbol of their duality. They believed that mastery of the Force alone was insufficient. It had to be complemented with worldly skills and practical knowledge. Unlike other Jedi who might focus exclusively on lightsaber combat or meditation, Sentinels were investigators, sleuths, and watchmen, operating often in the galaxy's shadows to prevent threats before they could manifest. Their training went beyond the traditional curriculum, extending into security systems, computer technology, and criminal investigation. Among the Sentinels, a particularly secretive and indispensable subclass existed: the Jedi Shadows. These operatives specialized in covert missions, tracking down dark side artifacts and preventing the proliferation of forbidden Sith knowledge. Shadows often worked alone or in small, tightly coordinated teams, utilizing stealth and subterfuge tools rarely seen in the wider Jedi ranks. Their existence was barely acknowledged beyond the Jedi Council, yet their efforts were pivotal in preserving galactic stability. Another subdivision, the Temple Guards, served as living embodiments of selfless service, wielding double-bladed yellow lightsabers and concealing their identities behind masks. These anonymous guardians devoted themselves entirely to the protection of the Jedi Temple. By surrendering personal identity, they became symbols of the Temple's sanctity, representing the Order's commitment to duty above all else. Jedi investigators following the Sentinel path played critical roles in law enforcement and political stability, solving crimes and uncovering conspiracies across the Republic. During the Clone Wars, figures such as Tara Sub exemplified this work, uncovering separatist plots and maintaining security on Coruscant. The Sentinel path emphasized adaptability. Jedi could shift roles as circumstances required or as their understanding of the Force evolved. Some, like Qui-Gon Jinn, defied strict categorization entirely, blending aspects of multiple paths to fulfill their unique vision of service. The Order's classification system was meant as guidance, providing structure while allowing personal growth. This diversity reflected a core understanding. Serving the Force encompassed far more than wielding a lightsaber or moving objects with one's mind. Each specialization illuminated a different facet of the Force, and together, they formed a complete whole, echoing the very nature of the Force itself. In the annals of Jedi history, the rank of Master represented more than seniority or raw power. It was the pinnacle of wisdom, leadership, and profound understanding of the Force. The journey from Padawan to Master was the most transformative passage in a Jedi's life, not marked by a single triumph, but by a gradual accumulation of experience, judgment, and mastery over the Jedi arts. Unlike the clearly defined trials that elevated a Padawan to knight, becoming a Master was nuanced and deeply personal, varying from individual to individual. The Jedi Council evaluated potential Masters on multiple criteria, recognizing that true mastery manifested differently in each Jedi. One traditional route to mastery involved successfully training a Padawan from novice to knight, demonstrating both Force proficiency and the ability to pass knowledge to the next generation. Obi-Wan Kenobi's guidance of Anakin Skywalker exemplified this path, though the Council understood that mentoring alone was insufficient. As Yoda often observed, teaching is the greatest way to learn. Prospective Masters were expected to display exceptional wisdom in handling complex, unpredictable situations. This could appear in diplomatic negotiations where violence was avoided through ingenuity, or in crises requiring judicious decision-making under extreme pressure. Mace Windu, for instance, demonstrated mastery not just through combat prowess, but through his development of a new lightsaber form, showcasing the creative application of Force knowledge. Deep understanding of the Force itself was another critical criterion. Potential Masters needed to demonstrate more than raw power, showing insight into subtleties, meditative techniques, advanced healing abilities, or innovative Force applications. Luminara Unduli's spiritual connection to the Force contributed directly to her recognition as a master. Leadership ability was evaluated through example rather than authority. Masters needed to inspire and guide others, leading missions, mentoring multiple Jedi, and contributing strategically to the Order's endeavors. During the Clone Wars, this capability often included commanding clone troops while remaining steadfast in Jedi principles. Finally, emotional maturity and stability were paramount. A Jedi Master had to face personal darkness without suppression, maintain serenity in the face of turmoil, and help others navigate similar struggles. Continuous observation by the Council ensured that prospective Masters embodied this essential equilibrium. Contributions to the Order's collective knowledge, through research, documentation, or innovative teaching, further demonstrated readiness for mastery, rounding out a comprehensive evaluation that transcended simple metrics of skill or power. The journey to Jedi mastery was, in every sense, a reflection of the Force itself, subtle, expansive, and infinitely complex, demanding constant adaptation, selflessness, and insight, weaving individual potential into the broader tapestry of galactic harmony. And so the Jedi archives were more than mere repositories of knowledge. They were living chronicles, vast and intricate, containing countless records of knights whose journeys led them to the rank of master. Each entry, each insight represented decades of dedication, courage, and reflection, forming a latticework of wisdom that guided generations yet to come. These contributions were not only philosophical or strategic, they often carried tangible, practical significance. For instance, Ki-Adi-Mundi's painstakingly detailed assessments of the Outer Rim territories provided the Order with an unparalleled understanding of galactic politics, allowing Jedi leaders to navigate volatile regions with foresight and subtlety. Service to the galaxy was a defining trait the Council sought above all. Knights who embodied this principle demonstrated exceptional dedication to the well-being of others, frequently exceeding the expectations of their formal duties. They were pioneers in conflict resolution, innovators in social programs, and champions of justice who extended the Order's influence with caution and respect. P.L. Kun's tireless advocacy for the rights of clone troopers illustrated this ethos perfectly, showing that true service required courage, compassion, and a vision that transcended personal ambition or glory. Physical mastery of the Jedi arts remained a cornerstone of evaluation, yet it was viewed as a foundation rather than a destination. A prospective master needed to exhibit not only flawless skill with a lightsaber or command of the Force, but the discernment to wield these powers judiciously. They had to adapt fluidly to any scenario, maintaining perfect control and situational awareness, yet the truest test lay in restraint, the wisdom to avoid conflict whenever possible. The Council's evaluation process was both continuous and dynamic. Potential masters were closely observed over years, often being entrusted with progressively complex missions designed to test the full spectrum of their abilities. These assignments ranged from delicate diplomatic negotiations to investigations of Force-sensitive phenomena, and from challenging ethical dilemmas to situations demanding unflinching courage. The Council scrutinized how these knights responded to failure, understanding that true mastery involved learning and growing through mistakes rather than avoiding them. Becoming a master also required an intimate attunement to the living Force, an understanding that transcended technique and strategy. Masters needed the ability to perceive subtle currents of the Force, interpreting its will while maintaining equilibrium between action and meditation, between the cosmic and living aspects of the Force. They guided others in perceiving these nuanced distinctions, helping novices discover their own paths in harmony with the Force's design. At the pinnacle of this structure stood the High Council, 12 masters whose combined wisdom formed the spiritual and administrative heart of the Jedi Order. Seated in the iconic circular chamber atop the highest tower of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, these individuals bore the immense responsibility of guiding an order whose decisions could influence the fate of the galaxy itself. The chamber's circular architecture was emblematic, a constant reminder of the eternal nature of the Force, while the arrangement of the 12 seats in a perfect circle symbolized equality, shared responsibility, and the collaborative spirit essential to the Council's deliberations. From their elevated position, they surveyed the sprawling city below, a daily testament to the vast reach of their guidance and the consequences of their judgment. Membership on the council represented the highest recognition of wisdom, dedication, and service. New members were never casually appointed. Selection was a solemn, multi-layered process involving meditation, consultation, and consensus. When a seat became vacant through death, retirement, or rare resignation, the remaining members entered deep meditative reflection, seeking the Force's guidance to identify those most suited for the role. Traditionally, the Council maintained a balance of 5 lifetime members, 4 long-term members, and 3 limited-term members. This structure preserved continuity while allowing fresh perspectives to invigorate the Order, ensuring that the Council's wisdom evolved alongside the galaxy it served. Each member brought unique skills and vision to the table. Mace Windu, as Master of the Order, acted as the primary liaison with the Republic Senate and the Supreme Chancellor, blending unmatched combat prowess with exceptional political insight. Master Yoda, as Grandmaster, embodied the spiritual essence of the Council, his centuries of experience providing unparalleled clarity in interpreting the will of the Force. Yet, even the most venerable among them spoke as equals. The Council functioned on consensus rather than hierarchy, reflecting the Jedi belief in collective wisdom. Their responsibilities were vast. The Council supervised Jedi training and deployment across the galaxy, evaluated candidates for knighthood and mastery, and oversaw the initiation of new members into the Order. They carefully managed the Jedi's relationship with the Galactic Senate, a delicate balance of autonomy and service, ensuring that the Order remained independent while honoring its commitment to the Republic. Each decision they made resonated far beyond the Temple, shaping the lives of countless beings and the course of galactic history itself. The Jedi High Council, in essence, was a living testament to the ideals of the Order, a convergence of wisdom, service, discipline, and spiritual insight, dedicated to preserving balance in a galaxy perpetually on the brink of chaos. Every master, every decision, every mission was part of an ongoing narrative, an intricate tapestry that chronicled not just the power of the Force, but its enduring capacity to guide, protect, and inspire. During the Clone Wars, the role of the Jedi Council evolved into something far more intricate than it had ever been in its long history. Once primarily guardians of peace and mediators in disputes, the Council now found itself thrust into the heart of galactic conflict, forced to navigate the treacherous terrain between spiritual guidance and military strategy. They were not only responsible for maintaining the Jedi Order's core principles, but also for directing entire armies of clones, each soldier a living extension of the Republic's will. Every decision carried profound consequences, not just for individual Jedi, but for the fate of countless worlds caught in the chaos of war. The Council's wisdom was tested as never before, compelling them to wrestle with questions of morality, duty, and the delicate balance between immediate necessity and long-term responsibility. Council deliberations were painstakingly deliberate. Major decisions required the presence of at least 9 members, whether physically in the Council chamber or connected via hologram across the galaxy. Discussions could extend for hours, sometimes days, until a true consensus was reached. Voting was a rare and reluctant measure, employed only when the pressures of time demanded it. This painstaking process reflected a deeply ingrained philosophy that wisdom was not born from haste, but from patient consideration of every perspective, every angle, and the guidance of the Force itself. Regular sessions involved reviewing detailed reports from Jedi in the field, assessing emerging threats to peace, and making assignments tailored to each Jedi's unique abilities and the evolving needs of the Republic. By maintaining a broader perspective than any single Jedi could manage on a mission, the Council discerned patterns and connections invisible to those consumed by immediate objectives. In addition to internal oversight, the Council served as the vital link between the Jedi Order and the Galactic Senate. This diplomatic role demanded exceptional skill, as Council members had to navigate the treacherous waters of political necessity while safeguarding the Order's independence. Every request from the Senate was weighed meticulously, which mandates could be accepted without compromising Jedi ideals, and which must be declined to honor the deeper responsibilities of the Force. During times of crisis, emergency sessions could be convened at any hour, often to make life-altering decisions about the deployment of Jedi to dangerous regions or the immediate response to threats. These moments required a delicate balance, urgent action for the present versus foresight for the long-term consequences, a tension the Council experienced acutely throughout the Clone Wars. The Council chamber itself was a blend of tradition and innovation. Sophisticated holographic technology allowed members stationed on distant missions to participate fully in deliberations, ensuring continuity of governance despite the galaxy-wide scale of operations. This technological adaptation highlighted the Council's pragmatic approach. The Order would maintain its cherished traditions while evolving to meet the demands of unprecedented circumstances. Council members were expected to set aside personal biases and attachments, even when faced with the agonizing choice of deploying forces they had once fought alongside. Individual insight was valued, but it was always refracted through the lens of service to the Order and the greater good of the galaxy. Among all ranks, none commanded more reverence than that of Grandmaster. This was not merely a position of administrative authority. It was the embodiment of Jedi wisdom, philosophy, and moral leadership. The Grandmaster represented the highest ideal of what a Jedi could aspire to become, a living symbol of the Order's principles and the spiritual path of the Force. The role could not be pursued through politics or ambition. It was bestowed only upon those who had achieved extraordinary mastery, insight, and understanding. Yoda, perhaps the most iconic Grandmaster in Jedi history, exemplified this multifaceted role. Standing barely over half a meter tall, he contrasted sharply with the enormous presence he commanded through the Force. Over centuries of service, Yoda shaped generations of Jedi, guiding not only through instruction, but through the subtle influence of his wisdom. His often quoted maxim, "Do or do not, there is no try," encapsulated a philosophy both profound and practical. That mastery of the Force required commitment, clarity, and courage. Yoda's responsibilities as Grandmaster were vast and complex. He oversaw the training of younglings, ensuring that each Jedi's journey began on a foundation of technical skill, ethical understanding, and philosophical depth. His teaching methods, sometimes seemingly enigmatic or unconventional, often challenged students with riddles, paradoxes, or seemingly impossible tasks. Yet each exercise was designed to deepen comprehension, to transform failure into growth, and to cultivate the intuition and judgment essential to Jedi life. Over time, these methods became central to the Order's approach to education, a testament to Yoda's enduring influence and the timeless wisdom of the Grandmasters who guided the Jedi through the trials of war and the ever-changing tides of the galaxy. The Clone Wars did not merely test the abilities of Jedi in combat, it tested their very philosophy, their capacity to act justly under pressure, and their commitment to the ideals that defined the Order. Through deliberate council deliberations, careful diplomacy, and the leadership of Grandmasters like Yoda, the Jedi Order strove to navigate this era of uncertainty, upholding a delicate balance between the temporal demands of war and the eternal truths of the Force. Every decision, every mission, every lesson was part of a tapestry that bound the Order to the galaxy it served, a constant reminder that wisdom, patience, and principled action were the truest forms of power. In the vast council chambers of the Jedi Order, Yoda's presence was unmistakable, even if his formal authority was no greater than that of his fellow council members. His wisdom, however, carried a weight that transcended rank or title. He possessed a rare gift, the ability to pierce through layers of political posturing, complex strategy, and moral ambiguity to grasp the very essence of a problem. During the years leading up to the Clone Wars, when the galaxy teetered on the edge of chaos, Yoda's insights became a beacon for the Order. His guidance helped navigate not only political entanglements, but the moral dilemmas that emerged as the Republic fractured and dark forces moved unseen. Despite his legendary acumen, Yoda remained profoundly humble, always ready to listen, to question, and to acknowledge that even his deep understanding might fall short in the face of unforeseen circumstances. Beyond the council chambers, Yoda's influence permeated every level of the Jedi Order. He was not simply a decision-maker, but a living embodiment of the Order's moral compass. His role required more than rote knowledge of Jedi tradition. It demanded the wisdom to apply ancient principles to novel, unprecedented challenges. His counsel balanced adherence to timeless values with the flexibility necessary to confront new crises. Throughout the Clone Wars, this balance became especially critical. Yoda was able to guide the Jedi through missions, battles, and political intrigue while steadfastly preserving their ethical code. His connection to the Force, honed over centuries, allowed him to sense disturbances and opportunities that others could not, offering strategic and moral clarity in situations that seemed impossible to navigate. Yet, even his unparalleled foresight could not prevent the catastrophic outcome of Order 66, a grim reminder that wisdom alone sometimes cannot avert tragedy. Exiled on Dagobah after the fall of the Order, Yoda demonstrated another aspect of his grandmastership: patience, the ability to wait for the right moment, and the courage to act when the time came. His exile was not simply survival, it was preparation, reflection, and the preservation of knowledge for the next generation. Decades later, Luke Skywalker would inherit this mantle in a galaxy profoundly changed. Unlike Yoda, Luke faced a galaxy scarred by conflict and the collapse of the Jedi Order. His challenge was not only to rebuild the Order from fragments, but to reinterpret ancient wisdom for a world that had forgotten much of its original context. Luke's journey from a humble farm boy to Grandmaster symbolized both personal growth and the rebirth of Jedi tradition. His approach to leadership combined reverence for ancient teachings with the courage to adapt, questioning practices that no longer served their purpose, and integrating lessons learned from both the light and dark sides of the Force. The role of Grandmaster demanded a remarkable balance. They were simultaneously teacher and student, leader and servant, warrior, and peacekeeper. They needed to maintain the continuity of ancient tradition while responding to evolving circumstances, balancing the needs of individual Jedi against the welfare of the Order as a whole. Yoda and Luke exemplified these principles in different ways, reflecting the unique challenges of their respective eras. One of the Grandmaster's most critical responsibilities was the preservation and transmission of Jedi knowledge. This task went beyond teaching techniques or maintaining archives. It involved nurturing an understanding of the Force itself, helping others to attune their senses, listen deeply, and internalize its guidance rather than relying on instruction alone. Grandmasters also served as ambassadors for the Order, their counsel sought by Jedi, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. They had to navigate the treacherous line between engagement and independence, ensuring that the Jedi remained influential yet uncorrupted by politics. They embodied the ideal of being in the world, but not of it. Participants who served others while remaining steadfast in their principles. When it came to the Jedi's most iconic tool, the lightsaber, these philosophical and practical dimensions converged. The snap hiss of a lightsaber igniting is instantly recognizable, capturing the imagination across the galaxy, but what it represents is far more than a weapon. Each lightsaber is the culmination of thousands of years of tradition, engineering, and mastery of the Force. Its handle may be small, roughly the size of a forearm, but it houses the essence of Jedi identity. The blade is only part of the story. The true magic resides in the kyber crystal that powers it. These rare, Force-attuned crystals are semi-sentient, capable of resonating with a Jedi's own energy, drawing their wielder into a profound, almost mystical partnership. The selection of a kyber crystal is itself a rite of passage. Young Padawans journey to the icy caves of Ilum, where they participate in the sacred ritual known as the Gathering. Within these frozen cathedrals, the crystals call to the Jedi, guiding them through darkness and danger. These caves are designed not merely as physical tests, but as trials of courage, self-awareness, and connection to the Force. Only by confronting their deepest fears can a Padawan claim their destined crystal. Yet finding the crystal is only the beginning. The construction of a lightsaber demands extraordinary precision. Jedi craftsmen work at a microscopic level, shaping energy and technology through sheer concentration and Force-guided skill. A single misstep can render the blade useless or deadly, an unstable weapon that could explode in the hands of its creator. The process is a delicate dance between patience, intuition, and technical mastery, a living testament to the synergy of mind, spirit, and tradition. Each completed lightsaber is not merely a weapon, but a reflection of its wielder, a symbol of dedication, discipline, and an intimate bond with the Force itself. Through these rituals, teachings, and the legacy of lightsabers, both Yoda and Luke Skywalker illustrate the enduring power of the Grandmaster's role, the ability to preserve the past, guide the present, and prepare for the future, embodying the living philosophy of the Jedi across generations. And the construction process itself was more than just a technical task. It was a profound meditation, an intimate and intricate dance between the Jedi and the components that would eventually become their lightsaber. Every weapon crafted was unique, a mirror reflecting the personality, temperament, and style of its wielder. Imagine, if you can, attempting to assemble a puzzle made of floating, ethereal pieces, blindfolded, relying solely on the subtle guidance of your mind and the Force flowing through you. Now shrink those pieces to microscopic scale and add the daunting requirement that the final product must contain and channel enough energy to slice through solid steel. Only then can one begin to comprehend the extraordinary patience, skill, and concentration required to bring a lightsaber to life. Each successful creation stood as a testament to its maker's mastery, a product born from both technical precision and spiritual attunement. The final result of this painstaking labor was not merely a weapon, it was an extension of the Jedi themselves. Contrary to popular belief, the color of the blade was never a simple aesthetic choice, like selecting a paint swatch. Instead, the crystal's hue emerged naturally during the bonding process, a reflection of the Jedi's nature and their connection to the Force. Blue blades, commonly wielded by those who excelled in combat, became emblematic of guardianship and protection. Green blades, favored by those who immersed themselves in the deeper mysteries of the Force, came to symbolize harmony, wisdom, and healing. And then there were the rare purple blades, exemplified most famously by Mace Windu, which spoke to a delicate balance between light and dark, a rare mastery of the Force that few could achieve. Perhaps most astonishingly, a properly constructed lightsaber was nearly weightless, with the only tangible mass concentrated in the hilt. The plasma blade generated no gyroscopic effect, which meant that every elaborate spin, flip, or acrobatic maneuver required immense skill, perfect control, and intimate synchronization with the Force. One lapse, one momentary distraction, and the consequences could be devastating. This is why Jedi training began at a young age, often with practiced sabers designed to sting without severing, teaching precision, focus, and respect for the power they would one day wield. The internal engineering of a lightsaber was a marvel of craftsmanship and Force alchemy. Within the compact hilt, components such as the primary crystal chamber, power cell, focusing rings, energy gate, emitter matrix, and a network of control circuits worked in seamless unison. All of these elements had to function perfectly together, encased in a hilt capable of withstanding everything from explosive decompression to a fall down a reactor shaft, an occurrence more common than one might assume. Yet, beyond these mechanical and energy considerations, the lightsaber was designed to grow alongside its master. Throughout a Jedi's life, the weapon could be modified and refined dozens of times, adapting to new insights, experiences, and deepening understanding of both the Force and oneself. During periods of galactic turmoil, such as the Clone Wars, lightsaber construction gained further significance. With restricted access to the rare crystals essential for their creation, Jedi adapted their designs, sometimes adding modifications for military applications, waterproof seals, enhanced power cells, or even secondary crystals to stabilize the blade. Still, despite such adaptations, the lightsaber remained an enduring symbol of the Jedi's connection to the Force and their commitment to balance and justice. Even the hum of a lightsaber had meaning. That distinctive sound arose from plasma contained within a magnetic field, creating an energy loop that resonated uniquely with each individual weapon. Experienced Jedi could identify familiar sabers by sound alone, much as one might recognize a friend's voice across a crowded room, only this was a voice of pure energy, a signature of craftsmanship and spiritual attunement. To understand the Jedi fully, one must appreciate the paradox of their existence. They were the Republic's most overqualified peacekeepers, warrior monks endowed with extraordinary powers, telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, all harnessed in the service of diplomacy and justice. They were tasked with maintaining peace, negotiating trade disputes, diffusing separatist uprisings, and confronting pirates, often in a single day, transitioning seamlessly from diplomatic mediation to life-or-death combat. Their work required balance, patience, and constant vigilance, as Obi-Wan Kenobi once ruefully observed during a particularly chaotic mission. "Why do I get the feeling you're going to be the death of me?" A sentiment echoed by many who shared his calling. Yet their primary role was never violence. Jedi peacekeeping was a deep, nuanced endeavor, rooted in understanding conflict at its core and addressing its underlying causes. On some planets, a Jedi might spend months simply observing, listening, and guiding factions toward compromise, often resolving disputes without a single strike of the blade. Their diplomatic efforts relied not only on skill, but on a unique combination of neutrality, insight, and spiritual attunement. To lie to a Jedi was to struggle against centuries of accumulated wisdom and the ability to sense emotions and intentions. They could pierce deception effortlessly, cutting to the heart of complex problems where ordinary diplomats could only stumble. And while Jedi were trained warriors, combat was always a last resort, a reluctant but necessary skill employed only when peace could not otherwise be achieved. The lightsaber, in this sense, was both a tool and a symbol, a reflection of discipline, connection to the Force, and the profound responsibility carried by those who wielded it. It was a weapon forged not just of energy and crystal, but of patience, insight, and an enduring commitment to protect and serve the galaxy with wisdom, courage, and precision. And so, as Master Yoda so often reminded his fellow Jedi, wars do not make one great. Yet paradoxically, the Jedi's reputation as unparalleled warriors often became their most potent tool for maintaining peace. The mere presence of a single Jedi, calm yet commanding, could halt a riot, dissuade smugglers, and turn would-be criminals away from violent impulses. Who, after all, would willingly provoke someone capable of deflecting blaster bolts with eyes closed and a serene smile? In this way, the Jedi's influence extended far beyond combat. They were living deterrents, embodiments of moral authority, and guardians of balance. Then came the Clone Wars, a galaxy-shattering conflict that forced the Jedi into roles they had never sought. Philosophers and peacekeepers were suddenly thrust into the throes of military command, leading entire armies of clone troopers through sprawling battlefields, planetary sieges, and starship engagements. For many, this was a transformation fraught with inner conflict, as they struggled to reconcile their peaceful principles with the harsh necessities of war. Picture Master Plo Koon, a figure of compassion and wisdom, forced to make tactical decisions that could cost the lives of soldiers he valued deeply. Or consider Ki-Adi-Mundi, a thoughtful scholar and diplomat, translating his carefully honed negotiation skills into strategies for commanding troops and winning battles. The war forced the Jedi to redefine their purpose, straddling the delicate line between soldier and sage, between warrior and healer. Their involvement in the Republic's justice system was no less complex. The Jedi were not police officers, yet they frequently collaborated with law enforcement, supplementing investigations with insight gleaned from their deep connection to the Force. They were not judges, yet their counsel carried extraordinary weight in legal proceedings. Often called upon when conventional law enforcement proved inadequate, or when cases bore far-reaching consequences for galactic peace, Jedi acted as moral compasses, guiding the Republic through ethical quandaries that might otherwise have destabilized entire systems. Relations with the Galactic Senate were equally nuanced. Though the Jedi served the Republic, they didn't bow unquestioningly to political power. Maintaining independence was crucial. At times, Jedi would decline Senate requests when directives clashed with their principles, creating tension between duty to the Republic and duty to the Force. Their mandate was not merely to serve politics, but to maintain balance and uphold the greater good, a responsibility that frequently placed them at odds with those wielding temporal authority. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant stood not just as a headquarters, but as a monument to their role in society. Rising prominently near the Senate building, the temple symbolized the Jedi's dual responsibilities as guardians of both peace and knowledge. It functioned as a center of learning, a neutral ground for diplomacy, and, when necessary, a bastion of defense. Its archives held centuries of accumulated wisdom, chronicles of service, and strategies for navigating the challenges of governance and conflict. In moments of crisis, the temple became a hub of action, a place from which Jedi could coordinate relief, mediate disputes, and deploy their abilities to save lives. The scope of their duties was staggering. A single day might find a Jedi investigating a criminal conspiracy in Coruscant's lower levels, negotiating peace treaties on distant mid-rim planets, escorting humanitarian relief convoys through active war zones, or studying mysterious phenomena in the unknown regions. Adaptability was essential. Jedi moved with equal ease through royal courts and refugee camps, through battlefields and diplomatic chambers, always guided by a vision of balance, justice, and compassion. Then came the fall. Imagine a force unparalleled in power, wisdom, and moral authority, suddenly reduced to nothingness. The demise of the Jedi Order was not merely tragic, it was a study in dramatic irony. The Guardians of Peace and Justice, so attuned to the currents of the Force, failed to see their own destruction brewing in the shadows. While they fought battles across the galaxy, their true adversary, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, maneuvered in plain sight, seated comfortably near their temple, orchestrating their downfall with chilling patience. Master Yoda would later reflect on the Order's tragic blindness, acknowledging that their confidence in their vigilance had left them vulnerable to the darkness growing unnoticed around them. The Clone Wars raged, Jedi spread thin and stretched across countless star systems, leading clone armies they had come to trust implicitly. These bonds were personal as much as professional. Plo Koon called his unit PL Bros, embodying camaraderie born in shared danger. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Commander Cody's friendship seemed unshakable, forged in countless battles. Master Depa Billaba and her Padawan Caleb Doom, later known as Kanan Jarrus, treated their troops as family. It was this very closeness that made Order 66 devastating. The betrayal was not merely swift, it was intimate, wrenching, and absolute. Imagine standing beside a comrade through endless campaigns, sharing victories, losses, and laughter, only to have that bond shattered in an instant. Clone troopers, once trusted allies and friends, became executioners the moment they received their orders. Master Ki-Adi-Mundi fell on Megiddo, gunned down by soldiers who had once followed his lead without question. Plo Koon's fighter was struck from the skies by pilots he had trained personally. Ayla Secura was blasted from her speeder on Salo Ukemi by troops who had only moments before acted under her command. And the younglings, the children of the Order, nurtured in the temple to trust the Force, to trust the Jedi, faced the most unspeakable horror. The sanctuary of learning and peace became a tomb. The sound of lightsabers and blaster fire replaced laughter and instruction. Hope and security, cultivated over years, were obliterated in moments. The tragedy of Order 66 lay not only in the scale of death, but in the intimate betrayal, in the profound collapse of trust, and in the extinguishing of a beacon of wisdom that had guided the galaxy for millennia. Every Jedi story of heroism, every act of compassion, every battle fought for justice and balance, all culminated in a moment of cosmic betrayal that reshaped the galaxy forever. The rise and fall of the Jedi Order remains a stark testament to the paradox of power, the fragility of even the noblest institutions, and the enduring challenge of preserving light in the face of encroaching darkness. The security recordings would later reveal scenes so harrowing that even the most battle-hardened soldiers struggled to watch. Anakin Skywalker, the so-called Chosen One, led the 501st Legion into the temple, and what unfolded there was a darkness too profound for ordinary recounting. Not every Jedi perished during the initial onslaught. Survival came in disparate ways, some through exceptional skill, others through sheer luck, and still others through the ultimate sacrifice of their comrades. Caleb Doom survived because his master, Depa Billaba, gave her life to buy him precious moments to escape. Jedi like Jocasta Nu managed to save invaluable artifacts and sacred knowledge, vanishing into the shadows of the galaxy, leaving only whispers of their existence. Each survivor carried more than the trauma of that night. They bore the crushing weight of a culture that had been nearly erased. The aftermath of the Purge was nearly as merciless as the attack itself. The Empire sought not just the destruction of the Jedi, but their obliteration from history. Temples were razed or repurposed. Records were systematically altered or destroyed, and an extensive propaganda campaign painted the Jedi as traitors and conspirators. Imagine having your entire way of life annihilated and then twisted into something unrecognizable, your values recast as treachery. The hunt for surviving Jedi extended for years. The Empire created the Inquisitorius, dark warriors often drawn from fallen Jedi, trained specifically to track and eliminate their former brethren. Their effectiveness lay in their intimate knowledge of Jedi abilities, their understanding of behaviors, tactics, and even the subtleties of concealment. It was a hunt in which the predator knew the prey's every instinct, a pursuit so relentless it was as if one were being hunted by one's own shadow. Many survivors chose paths of complete isolation. Obi-Wan Kenobi became a hermit on Tatooine, silently guarding Luke Skywalker from a distance. Yoda retreated to the swamps of Dagobah, immersing himself so deeply in the Force that the planet's natural dark side energies masked his presence entirely. Jedi masters like Ulic Qel-Droma and others created hidden repositories of knowledge and artifacts, hoping against hope that someday the Order might rise again. The psychological toll on those who survived was immense. Many were consumed by survivors' guilt, tormented by the inability to foresee the threat, or by the failure to save those who perished. Some questioned the very foundations of the Force itself. How could it allow such utter devastation? How could it permit the annihilation of its most devoted followers? These questions would haunt them for decades, festering in the shadows of memory. The impact on the galaxy was equally profound. With the Jedi gone, the primary force for justice and peace was abruptly removed. The Empire filled the power vacuum quickly and ruthlessly. Worlds that might once have called upon Jedi aid now had no champions to turn to. The loss was not merely of warriors, it was the erasure of mediators, peacekeepers, and advocates for justice. Entire civilizations felt the void, struggling under the weight of tyranny unchallenged. Rebuilding the Jedi Order was a monumental task. Luke Skywalker, starting with little more than 3 days of instruction from a hermit in the swamp and fragments of dusty old texts, became the galaxy's reluctant savior of a mystical tradition thought extinct. His journey from farm boy to heroic figurehead to reluctant grandmaster is perhaps one of the most extraordinary examples of learning under impossible circumstances in galactic history. He attempted to reconstruct an ancient order with nothing but scattered holocrons, the guidance of spectral mentors, and a fierce determination to do what generations before him could not. The challenges were staggering. Most of the galaxy believed the Jedi were either mythical figures or traitorous rebels. Recruiting disciples for an order seen as both extinct and dangerous was daunting. Yet Luke possessed an advantage the old order never had: a fresh perspective, unbound by rigid tradition or centuries of precedent. Where the ancient order insisted on detachment and strict rules against attachment, Luke learned through experience that love, empathy, and personal connection could be sources of strength rather than weakness. His faith in his father's inherent goodness, rather than blind adherence to dogma, became instrumental in toppling the Empire, showing that the Force was not merely a tool of detachment, but a living conduit for hope, redemption, and resilience. Every step of Luke's journey was a delicate balance of preservation and reinvention, honoring the past while adapting to the shattered reality of the present. He was tasked with resurrecting a galaxy-spanning order from fragments of knowledge, lost traditions, and the whispered legacies of those who had fallen. And in doing so, he not only faced the monumental task of rebuilding the Jedi, but he also carried the hopes of a galaxy desperate for light in the wake of darkness. And so, the early days of the new Jedi Order unfolded as a remarkable blend of age-old tradition and bold innovation. Luke Skywalker found himself in a position no Jedi had ever faced before. He had to reconstruct the entire system of Jedi training from the ground up. Imagine being asked to teach someone to swim when you've only just learned yourself. Every lesson, every experiment, every success and failure shaped not only the students, but the very concept of what it meant to be a Jedi in this new era. There were moments when he had to think, maybe that technique isn't the best idea after all. Yet each of these challenges became a building block in a broader, evolving understanding of the Force. Finding Force-sensitive individuals became its own adventure. In the times of the old Jedi Order, protocols existed to identify potential recruits almost from birth. Luke, however, relied on a far more instinctive approach, a method that could be described as noticing when something unusual occurred in a person. Some students were drawn to him by rumors or by the subtle awakening of their own Force sensitivity. Others were discovered on his travels, often in the most unexpected corners of the galaxy. Each new student brought not only their unique connection to the Force, but also their strengths, quirks, and complications, all of which demanded tailored guidance. The training grounds Luke established bore little resemblance to the grand temples of the past. There were no soaring spires or endless archives of knowledge. Instead, it was a practical, unpretentious collection of structures designed for hands-on learning. Students could meditate, spar, and occasionally test the limits of their abilities in ways that sometimes resulted in objects being unintentionally hurled across the grounds. What the facility lacked in grandeur, it more than made up for in spirit. It became a place where the Force was not just studied, but actively rediscovered, where new beginnings were nurtured daily. Luke's teaching methods were unorthodox, often startling to anyone accustomed to the structured traditions of the old Jedi Order. Students seeking to learn levitation might be asked to balance stones on their heads while maintaining focus. Those wishing to deepen their connection to the Force could find themselves blindfolded, facing training remotes buzzing toward them unpredictably. Yet beneath these unconventional exercises lay a profound wisdom. Luke understood that each student had to chart their own path to understanding the Force, just as he had. The journey was not without peril. The shadow of the dark side still loomed large, and with few experienced masters to guide the fledgling students, the risk of falling into temptation was ever present. Luke learned through trial and error how to navigate these dangers, sometimes with spectacularly unpredictable results. Then came Ben Solo, Luke's nephew, and the most promising student of the new generation. He carried not only the legacy of the Skywalker name, but also the family's propensity for dramatic, sometimes catastrophic, conflict. The destruction of Luke's temple and the loss of many of his students marked a devastating turning point, prompting him to retreat into self-imposed exile on Ahch-To. History seemed to repeat itself, but this time with a cruel twist. Luke chose isolation not merely to hide, but to prevent what he saw as an inevitable cycle of failure among Jedi. Enter Rey, a scavenger from Jakku, who emerged as the galaxy's most remarkable surprise. Her journey to becoming a Jedi defied convention even more than Luke's own path. She trained under both Luke and Leia, studied ancient Jedi texts, and eventually connected with the spirits of countless Jedi who had come before her. Rey's experience represented a uniquely multifaceted curriculum, combining lessons from the past with guidance from those who had lived through history's most pivotal moments. When she eventually assumed a role in re-establishing the Jedi Order, she carried forward the mistakes and triumphs of previous generations, while also charting a new path entirely her own. The stakes could not have been higher. Rey was not only rebuilding an ancient order for the third time, but also navigating her place within the galaxy's most powerful lineage of Force-sensitive individuals. Her journey illuminated a central truth. The power of a Jedi was not merely measured in strength or speed, but in wisdom, adaptability, and the capacity to learn from both triumph and failure. When considering the most powerful Jedi in history, the discussion goes far beyond raw physical feats or the ability to lift objects with the mind. These were individuals capable of reshaping battlefields, altering destinies, and on rare occasions, bending the very fabric of the Force itself. They were forces of nature in robes, embodying centuries of knowledge, discipline, and intuition. Master Yoda exemplifies this perfectly. A small green figure with an unassuming presence, he spent 900 years honing his understanding of the Force. He could lift an X-Wing from a swamp with the same effort most of us use to lift a cup of coffee. Yet the true measure of his power lay not in spectacle, but in his unparalleled comprehension of the Force and its infinite subtleties. Every Jedi, from the earliest masters to the new generation, carried within them the echoes of these lessons. Power was not only in what you could do, but in how you understood the Force, how you applied it, and how you guided those who came after. The new Jedi Order, fragile yet resilient, stood as a living testament to that balance, a place where tradition met innovation and the future was still waiting to be written. And so we begin with a figure who was nothing short of legendary, a Jedi whose very presence seemed to ripple through the fabric of the galaxy itself. He could sense disturbances light years away, detecting shifts in the Force like a cosmic seismograph. Lightning hurled by dark sorcery would crackle toward him, and he would meet it with nothing more than his bare hands, diverting its energy as if it were a trivial game. To witness such mastery was to see discipline and raw power fused into an art form. Even in his most intense moments, the light within him never faltered, never dimmed. Recall the audacious day he strode into the heart of galactic politics, the Senate building, and faced Emperor Palpatine himself. What unfolded was not simply a duel, but a ballet of cataclysmic force, a violent symphony as two titans hurled Senate pods across the chamber as if playing an otherworldly game of catch. Yet for all his spectacular feats, perhaps his greatest demonstration was restraint, a recognition that true strength is knowing when to act and when to remain still. Then there was Mace Windu, whose very name seemed to defy the darkness. Where others trembled at the shadows, he met them with a smirk, inventing his own lightsaber form, Vapod, a method of turning an opponent's hatred and aggression against them. Imagine confronting such malevolent energy only to have it reflected back as if the dark side were a child playing a dangerous game of stop hitting yourself. His clash with Palpatine proved that no Sith, no matter how ancient or powerful, could claim unquestioned dominance when faced with Windu's calculated fury. He might have claimed victory that day, if not for a fateful youngling whose anger would shape the fate of the galaxy. And that youngling, Anakin Skywalker, the so-called Chosen One. He was a storm in human form, a Force incarnate. Midi-chlorian counts bent beneath his presence. Conventional measures of potential proved inadequate. He could pilot any vessel, soar through impossible odds, and perform feats that left even seasoned Jedi whispering in awe. And yet, the tragedy of his story lay not in his absence of talent, but in the detour into shadow, the black armor, the echo of heavy breathing that became a dark signature. Even then, his power was undeniable. He could extend his reach across holocoms, bending others to his will without ever leaving his chamber. Luke Skywalker began humbly, a farm boy on a distant, sun-baked world, yet he rose to redefine the very limits of what it meant to be a Jedi. By the time the New Republic emerged, Luke was performing feats so audacious that the old council might have dropped their robes in shock. He could project himself across vast stretches of the galaxy with such realism that the physical world responded to his presence. And yet, even as his power soared, Luke's true strength was not spectacle, but insight, the ability to see light where others saw only shadow. When the galaxy had written Darth Vader off as irredeemable, Luke perceived the lingering humanity, the potential for redemption, a level of emotional intelligence that elevated Force sensitivity to something akin to divine perception. Rey, rising in a new era, carried raw, untempered power that shocked the imagination. She discovered the Force almost by accident, her abilities manifesting in monumental acts before she even fully understood the tools at her disposal. Within moments, she lifted tons of stone, wielded a lightsaber with instinctual precision there, and ultimately channeled the cumulative strength of Jedi from generations past. Even Yoda himself might have twitched in astonishment at her rapid ascent, for she demonstrated that power is not always measured in age, training, or lineage. It can erupt like a supernova from the most unexpected source. Among the galaxy's pantheon of Jedi, there are countless other figures whose feats deserve reverence. Ki-Adi-Mundi, a tactical genius whose understanding of war and Force mastery were inseparable. Plo Koon, whose rare light-side Force lightning was a reminder that the Force itself could bend to new interpretations. Obi-Wan Kenobi, whose mastery and control allowed him to confront prodigious foes with composure and clarity, most famously when he claimed the high ground against Anakin. Quinlan Vos, whose psychometric abilities could read the history of an object with near-perfect precision. Isla Secura, whose connection to the living force enabled communion with entire ecosystems, treating every leaf and creature as part of a universal dialogue. Each brought a unique flavor of excellence to a potluck of galactic power. And yet, in the Jedi Order, true strength was never merely the sum of physical feats or flashy displays. It resided in understanding, in discernment, in knowing when to wield the Force and when to let events unfold. Yoda's wisdom echoed this truth. Luminous beings are we, not crude matter. Obi-Wan's final confrontation with Vader was less about displays of strength than about the conscious choice to merge with the Force, transcending the need for violence. Luke confronting the First Order without lifting a finger exemplified a higher plane of mastery where the Force was not a tool but an extension of insight and moral clarity. The Jedi's relationship with the Force was both infinitely complex and profoundly elegant. It was not a matter of control, for to dominate the Force is a path reserved for the Sith, and history shows where such ambition leads. Rather, Jedi sought to listen, to interpret, to maintain the natural equilibrium of a cosmic energy field that bound life, death, and destiny. Imagine the Force as a galactic communication network, broadcasting the fundamental currents of existence. Jedi were moderators, not controllers, tasked with guiding the flow and preventing chaos without ever commanding it outright. Balance, as the Jedi sought to achieve it, was not a matter of eradicating darkness, but understanding its place within the greater whole. Early interpretations, focusing solely on the dominance of light, often failed to appreciate that shadows, too, have purpose. The Force manifests in ways that are spectacular yet subtle, dramatic yet intimate. There are the visible wonders, levitating starships, shattering objects with a gesture, bending minds to will. But beneath it all lies a deeper symphony, one of timing, restraint, compassion, and cosmic awareness. To witness a Jedi in full communion with the Force is to see the universe itself reflected in a single conscious being, capable of harmonizing with the rhythms of life and destiny alike. This was not just power. This was attunement, enlightenment, and the rarest expression of mastery the galaxy could ever know. And so the story of the Jedi begins not with lightsabers or battles, but with an almost unimaginable sensitivity to the Force, a vast, invisible web connecting all living things across the galaxy. Jedi could sense disturbances across light years, communicate in subtle ways with the very essence of nature, and, astonishingly, in certain rare cases, retain consciousness after death, a process so complicated that the bureaucratic paperwork alone might have discouraged anyone but the most devoted among them. Being Force-sensitive was far more than having flashy powers. It meant attuning oneself to the underlying frequency of the galaxy, like hearing the rhythm of the stars themselves. Imagine perceiving the energy flowing through every living creature, feeling tremors from events both nearby and worlds away, and occasionally receiving enigmatic hints of what might happen in the future. Now imagine trying to handle your everyday responsibilities with that constant cosmic awareness hovering at the edges of your mind. Suddenly, all those hours spent in meditation and training start to make perfect sense. The Jedi viewed the Force through two intertwined lenses, the living Force and the cosmic Force. The living Force emanated from all life, existing in the present moment, tangible and immediate. The cosmic Force represented the grand tapestry of destiny, the interconnected web of possibilities and outcomes stretching across time and space. Balancing attention between these two aspects was a monumental challenge, akin to watching a high-speed pod race while simultaneously playing a tense game of Dejarik, yet it was crucial for understanding the full spectrum of existence. Qui-Gon Jinn, for example, was uniquely attuned to the living Force, often frustrating the Jedi Council with his focus on the here and now, rather than long-term strategy. His profound insight eventually led him to become the first known Jedi to discover the path to consciousness after death, proving that even in debate, patience and perspective can yield extraordinary breakthroughs. The Jedi did not see their mission as a simple moral slogan or a badge of honor. As guardians of peace and justice, every diplomatic negotiation, every nonviolent resolution, and every act of protection was, in their eyes, an active service to the natural balance of the Force. Yet the Force itself seemed to delight in irony. The Jedi spent millennia striving to maintain balance, only to face one of their greatest challenges in the figure of the Chosen One, the very person destined to restore balance. A reminder that sometimes maintaining equilibrium requires disruption. The Force operates in mysterious, often unpredictable ways, frequently introducing a sense of dramatic irony that tested the wisdom and patience of even the most disciplined Jedi. Prophecy and Jedi philosophy added another layer of complexity. Through their connection to the Force, some Jedi could glimpse potential futures, but these visions were never definitive. As Master Yoda often warned, the future is always in motion. These glimpses were less like step-by-step instructions and more like cryptic weather forecasts, vague, uncertain, and subject to constant change. The challenge was not merely seeing the future, but interpreting it wisely, understanding the best course of action in a universe that refused to stand still. Over time, the Jedi understanding of their role evolved. The Old Order, for all its wisdom, could sometimes become entangled in tradition and rigid interpretations. Luke Skywalker introduced a perspective that saw the Force beyond simple binaries of light and dark, while Rey eventually embraced an even more holistic understanding, recognizing the Force as a living, dynamic presence in which the Jedi were participants, not controllers. The Force bond between Rey and Ben Solo represented something unprecedented, a rare intergenerational connection that demonstrated balance can emerge in unexpected ways. This was a stark reminder that the Jedi's role was not to dictate how the Force should act, but to perceive and cooperate with its natural flow. The ultimate expression of Jedi philosophy was their ability to transcend death, becoming one with the Force. In this state, they became pure vessels of energy and wisdom, capable of guiding future generations long after their physical forms had vanished. Figures like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Luke Skywalker continued to serve the Force even after death, embodying the timelessness of their principles. Examining the full sweep of Jedi history reveals a complex, fascinating story. From the first Force-sensitive children discovering their connection to something far greater than themselves, to the pinnacle of power as galactic guardians, the Jedi journey was one of evolution, triumph, tragedy, and profound wisdom. They were philosophers, warriors, diplomats, and, when necessary, reluctant generals. They wielded power capable of reshaping worlds but preferred dialogue and understanding over destruction. The transition from Padawan to Knight to Master was not a mere career trajectory. It was a deep, transformative journey of the soul, requiring mastery of not just physical skill, but ethical responsibility. Even their iconic lightsabers were more than weapons. They were symbols of the Jedi's ideals, blades of pure energy, wielded with discipline and insight, representing both the capacity to protect and the potential to destroy. Each lightsaber reflected the wielder's connection to the Force, their wisdom, and their commitment to balance, standing as a luminous reminder of what it truly meant to be a Jedi. The story of the Jedi is ultimately a story of paradox and persistence, of vast potential tempered by restraint, of cosmic awareness channeled into service and compassion. It is a tale that stretches across generations, a testament to the enduring quest for harmony in a universe as unpredictable as it is magnificent. Like the Jedi themselves, lightsabers embodied a paradox of immense power and delicate responsibility. In the hands of someone untrained or ill-intentioned, they could wreak devastating destruction, cutting through steel and flesh alike with frightening precision. Yet, in the hands of a Jedi, these elegant weapons were more than tools. They were symbols, instruments of protection, guardianship, and peace. The act of building one's own lightsaber was never simply a rite of passage. It was a profound meditation, a reflection of the Jedi's journey and personal commitment to the Force. Each crystal chosen, each hilt constructed, was an extension of the Jedi's soul, a tangible manifestation of their path toward enlightenment and service. The Clone Wars marked the apex of Jedi prominence and simultaneously the quiet heralding of their decline. Across the galaxy, they commanded vast armies, strategized in interstellar theaters of war, and became legends whose names echoed even in the most distant reaches of the Outer Rim. And yet, their extraordinary visibility, their entanglement in galactic politics and warfare, planted the seeds of vulnerability. There is a lesson embedded in this era about the perils of intertwining mystical philosophy with military hierarchy, though that is a discussion for another time, perhaps a dusty holocron in some forgotten temple. The fall of the Jedi Order was never simply a consequence of Order 66 or the Emperor's rise. It was the inevitable outcome of accumulated tensions spanning centuries. Their immense successes fostered a certain rigidity in thought, a confidence that verged on hubris. As Yoda would later contemplate during his self-imposed exile, the Jedi had become so preoccupied with preserving the established order that they lost sight of the Force's constantly shifting currents. Yet, in the grand tapestry of the galaxy, the Force has a peculiar way of restoring balance, often in ways that are ironic, subtle, and surprising. The emergence of Luke Skywalker, the rekindling of hope through Rey, and the eventual resurgence of the Jedi Order were not mere continuations of a galactic saga. They were living proof that the Force orchestrates renewal even from ruin. It is a strange twist of destiny that the son of a man instrumental in the Jedi's near annihilation would rise to become the beacon of their rebirth. Under Luke, and later Rey, the new Jedi Order learned to embrace the lessons of history while maintaining a deep respect for its wisdom. They recognized that attachment and emotion, once considered dangerous paths to the dark side, could be harnessed as sources of strength when approached with understanding and mindfulness. The old rigid hierarchies gave way to more nuanced interpretations of service to the Force, proving that evolution is sometimes the truest form of honoring a tradition. Looking back at the most formidable Jedi, it becomes clear that raw power was never the measure of greatness. True mastery lay in restraint, in using one's abilities to protect and to heal rather than to dominate. Even Yoda, perhaps the most powerful Jedi of the Old Order, was revered less for feats of telekinesis or combat and more for the depth of his wisdom, his counsel, and his insight into the nature of the Force. The Jedi were not merely cosmic peacekeepers. They were integral components of the Force's own mysterious design, instruments through which the balance of the galaxy was maintained. Each trial they faced, each triumph or tragedy, contributed to the greater pattern of the Force, weaving threads of light and shadow into the intricate fabric of existence. Even the darkest chapters, such as the devastation wrought by Order 66, the rise of the Empire, or the destruction of Luke's temple, eventually yielded lessons, growth, and renewal. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Jedi does not reside in their supernatural abilities, their legendary battles, or their philosophical doctrines. It lies in the idea they represented: the persistent, unwavering hope that wisdom, compassion, and justice could overcome darkness and fear, even when the galaxy seemed consumed by chaos. That hope became a living inheritance, passed from master to apprentice like a lightsaber, shining through generations, a reminder that even in the vast expanse of uncertainty, the light of the Jedi endures.